Good afternoon. How are you? Well, we got a little bit more warmth here today. Thomas Jefferson says that the temperature is 80 degrees, the humidity is 49, and the winds are a breezy 2.2 miles an hour. There's a lot of analysis going on of our relationship to Trump and Trump to ours. Now, I think it's easy to say that Trump does not have or care to have much of a relationship with, quote, us, except to manipulate, use, compromise, and achieve whatever ends he can that are tantamount to him being a dictator. So, but there's a lot of talk about how do we deal with this kind of language, the anger. And there are assumptions made about such conversations that require ground rules that are not extant in these circumstances. So let me try to explain what I think. These days we have to consider anger toward us for no good reason. And that's Trump's retribution. You don't have to have done anything specifically yourself against him. And his brush is so broad that he seems unconcerned when his anger also affects his own people. Now, years ago, I'd say 2000 or so, I was reading a brilliant Buddhist voice on this subject, Thich Nhat Hanh, apologies for pronunciation. He said we could transform anger. And he described and gave examples of it with compassionate listening and using loving speech. Now, here's the problem. And he would give examples of how this did work. But here's the promise. The premise of this approach is that if Trump's speech is full of anger, it's because he suffers deeply. If we listen compassionately, Trump will hurt less. That is the thinking, the spiritual instruction, if you will, of that thought. But plainly, that's not possible. I mean, Trump goes out and attacks, name your group, Comey, all Democrats, institutes policies that hurt those and others, including his own. So we have to consider, what about us, you and I? How do we deal with so much anger? And we are dealing with it. We talk about it. We say, I can't hear his voice. I can't listen to him anymore. I'm not reading the newspapers. I'm not following the streaming shows. I'm canceling subscriptions and so forth. Those are all legitimate ways, in my opinion, to handle the anger directed at us and what anger we might have if we didn't take steps to protect ourselves. Now, Hahn advised and warned that this was a mind-body experience. I believe it's called Namarupi or Namarupa. And that's the term that talks about how the toxicity of the anger affects our body. And some of us have talked about that. The collision of everything we know and should be is at risk on a daily basis with a man who does not want his anger lessened, who seems limitless in his appetite for anger and hate. And so, how do we deal with that? Now, if we're sick in the mind, we may be sick in the body. Now, Trump in recent days, it may not be true, appears to be suffering in the body. He talks about, will he survive to 2026? There are objective indications that the man is ill. We don't know how far that goes. We don't know if it's 25th Amendment ill, meaning he needs to be replaced under our constitutional framework. Trump daily eats and consumes anger. It's like one of these Marvel movies in a way. He feeds on evil. He feeds on hate. He feeds on anger. He feeds on getting even. And he doesn't care. He doesn't care how it appears. So we have to be careful what we consume with our eyes, our ears, and our consciousness. We must defend against the toxins that are words and misconduct by Trump. We must select and must act mindfully, would be the terms used 25 years ago when Han was teaching. We must look toward the future. See, we have to find the positive for ourselves. And it's happening. So this is not Pollyannish. It may not be happening as fast, as much, as extensive, as necessary as it must be, but it is happening. Now, what could set us off? I'll give examples. You know these. It could be as simple as an FBI agent refused to submit Comey to a perp walk. The former director of the FBI charged with frivolous charges. No fear of violence, resistance, failure to show, any of those things. That's the only reason for a, quote, perp walk. But Trump wants to try to humiliate Comey. Trump needs, as a coward, people to put distance between him and Comey. Now, Comey, despite his errors, and we know what they are, we do not believe he's corrupt. I do believe he tells the truth. I do believe he's told the truth in such a fashion that I'm enabled to criticize his decisions, particularly when Clinton was running for president. So that's something that could bother us. So how do we deal with that? We have 1,000 prosecutors, including myself, former prosecutors that is, calling out each and every element of this prosecution of Comey and calling it for what it is. In that context, what could upset us, that is, punishing an FBI officer for refusing to put Comey in a perp walk, is a victory for those of us who think that that's inappropriate and unnecessary. And it conforms with the accusations against the Department of Injustice. And it lays the groundwork for a court appearance that I suspect is going to be pretty sternly reviewed by whatever judge in the Eastern District of Virginia, that is in Alexandria, gets this case. So that's one example. Patel, head of the FBI, he suspended or fired someone who had a pride flag. Really? Vance said, oh, it's just funny that we placed a sombrero on Jeffries, the minority leader in the House. And it is possible that these excessive, childlike, racist demonstrations get us angry. But the perception of them tells us everything about the shallow criminal mind that is the image of a Trump loyalist and of Trump himself. So what I'm really talking about is a little bit of psychological jiu-jitsu here. You control your own health, mind and body, by not eating too much of the toxins that are spread on a daily basis. But you also look for the steps we take forward, whether they be in inches, yards, whether they be in minutes or days or weeks. Because we are right, and there seems to be a gathering storm of opposition that is getting more effective in the face of the outrage that is everything Trump says and does. Vance, he talks about the sombrero, and he says, oh, it's just fun, we're just having fun. And the other evening, Jimmy Kimmel's, I think it was Colbert, said, yeah, that's funny, that's really funny. And so as long as they put up this thing about Jeffries or other demeaning, slanderous, racist memes, why don't we put up something that shows Vance for who he is? So I realize that maybe nobody needs this. I'm not a mendicant for us, but I know we're all going through these things. And people are saying, why can't you talk nice to them? And that's fine, and we could do that, but they barred the door. They don't want to talk nice. They don't want to talk with us. Not even when the government's closed do they want to get together and solve the problem. We can't solve the problem easily to stop armed forces from occupying American cities. We summoned all these military to town. So, with all respect for how one can and should meet with some who will anger less when we have such meetings, that's fine. But we can't ignore a Steve Miller, a Vance, a Trump, who make it crystal clear they have no interest, none, in any dialogue. When I was on the Hill and first on the Senate, I found that Republicans and Democrats could agree to get things done. And the Republicans were in control while I was assigned a special counsel in the U.S. Senate. In fact, appointed in one case by Orrin Hatch and Strom Thurmond to the Judiciary and Labor Committees. But when I came back to the Hill for the House, I discovered that the notion of Republicans then, we're going back to the 90s here now, late 90s, and what I found was that what they meant by a meeting was the Republicans showed up, told us what they would do, and in not so many words would say, take it or leave it. Now, there were areas where we could form agreement. I assume if I were on the Hill now, I would be very, very hard pressed to find any issues because the posturing is enormous. The fear of Trump's reprisal is unlimited, and we have very few people of courage in either House or Senate. But we do have some people speaking out, and it does appear to me that Schumer put a stronger foot forward than he was willing to do earlier. And I did work for him as his special counsel when he was in the House. And so it's hard for me to be critical of him, but he needs more fight. We can't be saps and find compassionate speaking with people who have no use for compassion. So that's a couple of my thoughts for today. I don't mean it as a lecture, so I mean it as observations as much for me as, and you've probably made your own bargains with our difficult times. So that's what I got, and perhaps I'll see you tomorrow on the trail. All the best. Bye-bye.